Hello everyone, I hope you're all well. Today I thought I'd share some of my favourite fiction books that I've read recently, because if there's ever a time to get into reading, it is definitely now. And as I say, I've picked my, not really top 10, but like 10 recent reads that were fiction. I want to say non-fiction, but if you guys would like to see non-fiction or some more suggestions, let me know, because I have plenty to share. But yeah, let's just get into the video. I'm going to try and show you all these books without dropping them, let's hope. Have a nice big pile here to get through, so I'm going to try not to ramble too much and just talk you through each book so you get a good idea of what they're about. So the first book is What Milo Saw by Virginia Macgregor, and last year if anyone ever asked me for like a book recommendation, it was this one because I really enjoyed it. And the basic premise of the story is it's based around a little boy who's called Milo, and he has a sight issue where basically his vision is like through a pinhole, so he's quite visually impaired, and he has a little pet pig called Hamlet, and him and his pet pig go on this big adventure and basically find out that where his gran is living in a care home is pretty dodgy, and he goes on the mission to try and like solve it. And I'm probably not selling it as good as it is, but it was really interesting, and I love a book where you can't actually predict the ending, and this one really wasn't predictable and it had a lot of layers to it, which I like. So yeah, if you're looking for a non-fiction book out of all of these, this is the one I've been recommending people, and I really enjoyed it, and I've read it twice already, so if that doesn't say it's a good book, I don't know what does. The next one is Eleanor Oliphant is Completely Fine, and this one is by Gail Honeyman, and I read this about a year ago, so I'm not gonna lie, I'm a bit rusty about all the details, but it's basically about a woman called Eleanor, and she lives a very kind of regimented, like a routine oriented life where she doesn't really branch out, do anything adventurous, and it's basically just the story of her meeting someone and learning to sort of live life to the fullest, I guess. So it was a really interesting read, and it had a lot of, again, good plot twist to it, and whilst it had a really nice ending, it did still have like moments where it was quite sad, so it does take you through all of the emotions, which is what I liked about it. And as I say, I read this a while ago, so I can't really remember the ins and outs, so I'll probably end up rereading it because I'm running short on content and all of the libraries are shut, so I think I'm going to be rereading a lot of books at the minute, so yeah. The next one is Love, Rosie, and this is kind of cliche, but my favourite film is Love, Rosie, which is obviously based off of the book, and this is by Cecilia Ahern. And if you've seen the film, you'll probably roughly know what it's about, but in the book it's written as a series of like emails and conversations that are like, yeah, basically emails, so it's not written in a usual story way, but it still is written really nicely, and it's about a girl called Rosie, and I think when they start the book she's like 17, and you basically follow her through her life, and it's like the really like, not tragic, but story where you want these two people to get together and everything just seems to be going against them. But yeah, really good, and if you do enjoy the book, 100% watch the film because it's so good. But yeah, if you want a nice cheesy romance book, definitely this one is good, and it's nice and thick, so it might take you a few days to get through as well. Next is The Rosie Project by Graham Simsion. Sorry, I've butchered your name. I think it's Simsion, I don't really know, but I will try and remember to leave them all linked anyway. This has been, again, one of my favourite books recently. I read it about over a year ago, and I reread it literally last week, and then read the sequel, and I want to read the third one but haven't had a chance yet. But I thought I'd just mention the first book for the sake of this video, and if you enjoy it then you can read the follow-up books. But basically this book follows the story of a scientist called Don and his life, and he is on the autism spectrum, so lives a very routine based and like oriented life, and he thinks the best way to find love is to sort of do it like an experiment and have a big questionnaire so he can find the perfect partner. But as it goes, obviously he ends up meeting someone who is the complete opposite and falls for her instead, and I hope you don't think I'm giving away the plot by telling you that, because that happens pretty early on. But it's basically just you follow the life of Don and you see how much his life changes and how much happier he becomes when he sort of lets go of control and has a little bit more fun in his life. And yeah, as I say, this one really good. The sequel also really good, and I really want to get the third one, as I say. So if you want like a little sequel series sort of thing, this one is a good one to go for, and I really recommend it. The next one is One Day in December by Josie Silver, and again, if you like a good romance book or one where two people are meant to be together but everything is going against them. This is another good one, and it basically starts out with a woman who's on a bus. She makes eye contact with this guy at the bus stop and they have like this spark, and yeah, they just sort of know that they're meant to be together but nothing comes of it. And you basically follow them over years of their life as they have small encounters and how it all sort of comes together. And again, another book that has lots of layers, and I hope you know what I mean by layers, but like lots of little stories that run through it as well. This one's really good for that. I really enjoyed reading it, and I'm not gonna lie, I waited until like November, December to read it because it just felt more fitting because it was all like Christmassy and stuff. But it does run through, as I say, years of their life, so don't feel like you have to save it for Christmas. I'm just a bit weird like that. But again, another really good romance book. Next we have Sophie Kinsella, 20s Girl, and I'm sure if you like a romance or rom-com kind of book, you have read plenty of Sophie Kinsella novels because she's one of my favourites when it comes to this kind of genre. But the one I specifically picked was 20s Girl, just because this for me was the most sort of unpredictable and different, I guess. And basically the main character ends up seeing her like great aunt, I think it's her great aunt, who is dead as a ghost, but the ghost is of her aunt when she was like 20, not as she died at like 90, if that makes sense. And her and this ghost are going on a mission because she's basically stuck in limbo and can't kind of pass until she's done what she needs to do. And in the process of doing that, the main character, I'm not gonna lie, I can't remember her name, which is why I'm just saying the main character, she also then goes through a lot of transformation because the ghost is forcing her to kind of step out her comfort zone. And yeah, I thought I'd mention this one just because, as I say, I've not read a story like this at all where it's been based around meeting a ghost and that sort of thing. And it sounds weird, but even though it is very unusual with having a ghost in it, it was also believable at the same time. So yeah, it was sort of relatable even though there was a ghost involved, but I do really recommend it. And yeah, that's about all I have to say. But if you are ever struggling for a good rom-com book, obviously Sophie Kinsella is a good go-to. Next we have Elizabeth is Missing by Emma Healey, and this is another one that I really enjoyed and read quite recently. I would say this is sort of a mystery thriller style book. It's basically narrated by this old woman called Maud who lives by herself and is very forgetful. She has like early onset Alzheimer's but obviously doesn't realise it, and she is convinced that her friend Elizabeth, who she often sees most days to like meet up for cake and whatever, is missing because she's not seen her. And her daughter is obviously trying to convince her she's just being paranoid, and yeah, it's all based around the idea that Elizabeth is missing, but at the same time it ends up unearthing another story. So this one was really interesting because it was sort of set in two time zones in a way. So it was Maud as an older woman trying to find Elizabeth, and then there was also a backstory of when she was younger and her sister also went missing. And yeah, it all ends up linking together, which is really interesting. And it was one of those again where I couldn't guess the ending and really enjoyed it. And I'm probably going to read it again soon because, as I say, it was really enjoyable and there was so much to it that you end up forgetting a lot of the sort of key pieces to it. And yeah, really good. I actually got this in a charity shop as well for like £1, so definitely worth that sort of money. But if you can get your hands on this, I really recommend it. I realised I said these were all fiction, but I have got one non-fiction one, but I'm just going to mention it anyway and hope that's alright. So the non-fiction one is This Is Going to Hurt by Adam Kay, and this was the first book. He did release a second one which was set around Christmas, and that one was really good too, but I thought I'd just mention the first one for the sake of this video. This is basically a series of diary entries by Adam because he was a junior doctor, and it basically just documents his experiences working as a junior doctor. And it's a really good mix of funny moments, sad moments, like basically every emotion you can experience is in this book. And when I finished the book, it was one of those where I kind of had to take a few days without reading just to process it, and I did cry, I'm not gonna lie. But it's a really good book. As I say, it's non-fiction, it is based on like true events, and I think it gives a really good insight into the NHS and how hard stuff work for the NHS, and especially at a time like this, I think it will really make you sort of see what it's really like, I guess. And it makes me very grateful for all the doctors and nurses. I used to want to be a nurse, but I can't handle blood, so I just lived through this book instead. But yeah, if you want something that's non-fiction but not too heavy but still has a good amount of substance to it, I really recommend this one. I think it's on offer on Amazon at the minute, and there's also, as I say, a sequel to get your hands on as well. So yeah, really recommend this, but be prepared, you will probably cry at some point, just putting it out there. The next one is 1984 by George Orwell. This was quite a different one for me. I've not read anything in this sort of style where it's like a classic book in a long time, probably since like GCSEs, but I wanted to read this one because it's one that I've heard a lot about but never read, and I really enjoyed it. It took me quite a while to get through it, but I liked it, and then it creeped me out. And the reason it creeped me out is because I see a lot of this that could happen in future society, and I think we're at a point where this could become the future. So it freaked me out in that sense, but it was a really interesting read. And if you don't know what it's basically about this man called Winston who works for what's called the Ministry of Truth, because it's like a big communist society that is powered by Big Brother who watches over everyone. So you don't have like freedom of speech, you can't have your own thoughts. Basically everyone is almost programmed to be like robots and just serve their sort of country, and it's really interesting. And they like go into how news is fake and is overwritten, and there's loads. I don't want to like ruin it by explaining everything, but it was really interesting. Prepared to be creeped out, because I don't know if it's just me, but I can fully see this happening with the state of the world. I hope it doesn't, obviously, because it was quite freaky, but it was a really interesting book. It has a little bit of a love story to it in there as well, so there's a bit for everyone I think in here, and it will definitely make you be a lot more reflectful about society. Finally, we have The Tattooist of Auschwitz by Heather Morris, and this one is a fiction book but was based on a true story, but obviously has been altered slightly to be made into a proper book. But it follows the life of a man called Lyle who is sent to Auschwitz and becomes the tattooist. So he's the one who has to like ink the numbers on all the inmates' arms and stuff like that. And it's a very harrowing story, but also really interesting. I find the World War stuff really interesting, even though it is very like horrific. But yeah, this follows his experience in the camp and how he tries to kind of not suck up but become friends with some of the guards so that he can stay safe and sort of work his way up in the camp to get immunity so he's not killed. And then he also ends up falling in love with a girl and tries to save her, and yeah, there's a lot to it. It was really interesting. Again, you'll probably need some tissues at some points because it is not really graphic, but yeah, you'll get a good sense of what it was like to be at that camp, and it's, yeah, very interesting, but also can be quite, yeah, sad obviously, but I did really enjoy it. But it's quite a sort of heavy read, I guess you could say. So those are all of my suggestions. I hope you guys enjoyed this video and it gives you a few ideas on what you can read. If I remember and I'm organised, I will try and link all of the books down below, or if I don't link them, I will leave a list for you guys to check out. If you have any good book suggestions as well, let me know, because as I say, I'm running low on books and Amazon is still a thing, so I can always order a few new ones. So yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you very soon with another one.